Okay, hello, welcome to another video. And so this video is about the Korean healing fiction novels. And I review novels for a radio show just now. I've been doing it for the past several years. And they ask me to review the latest releases, right? All the books have to be Korean novels that have been translated into English, and I have to review the new releases. And so this means over the past few years, I've read several of these healing fiction novels, which left to my own devices I probably wouldn't be reading. But I have, because of this radio show, I have read several of them, and I'm not a fan of these books, and I really don't like them. I kind of found them objectionable in some way, and so this little video is my attempt to explain what it is that I don't like about these so-called, or these healing fiction books, or K-healing novels. So imagine you are stressed out reader, and you want to curl up on a rainy afternoon on your sofa, and you're going to read one of these healing books. Let's say you choose the Dallergut Dream Department Store, or the Rainfall Market, or the Uncanny Convenience Store, but you choose one of these books. The story transports you to a whimsical department store, or an uncanny convenience store, or a magical traditional market run by goblins, or a magical laundrette in another one of these books. And you, in the Dallergut Dream Department Store, you will encounter, magical dreams that are sold from as if they're products in a department store. So you can buy a flying dream, you can buy a forgotten childhood memory, and all of these things are, neatly packaged like products on the shelves in a supermarket, and they offer gentle remedies for a soul, for the troubled soul, and they are dispensed with a warm and kind smile. And I'm always a little worried that my sound's not working, so let me just check very, very quickly, and then I will continue. Okay, very good. And so, amid the relentless grind and the burnout that many people experience, the economic pressures of the modern world, and the hyper competitive nature of Korea in general, these sort of magical, yet also very ordinary spaces depicted in these healing novels, they offer something which maybe is increasingly rare, some gentle solace and small acts of kindness, and the quiet promise that emotional repair is possible, and perhaps possible without sort of grand upheavals. This is the essence of the Korean healing fiction, or the K-healing, or the healing novels. It's a genre that has surged in popularity since, especially since around 2020. Doesn't seem to show any signs of slowing down in 2026. And it was sparked by titles like the Dallergut Dream Department Store and Uncanny Convenience Store. And the Dallergut Dream Department Store in particular, it was very successful, sold over 1 million copies in Korea very quickly. Sort of a word of mouth sensation. It's been translated into more than 15 languages, and the sort of fandom around it has exploded globally. And I think fueled by recommendations on shorts and reels, and these type of viral, sort of viral booktube kind of videos, and things like that. And like I said, word of mouth among weary readers or stressed out readers. We have a lot of similar works. So, Welcome to the Hyunam-dong Bookshop was very successful. It was by Hwang Borum. You had the Second Chance Convenience Store, Marigold Mine Laundry, the Rainfall Market, And a lot of these books have featured on bestseller lists at home in Korea and internationally. Overseas sales of Korean books have increased in recent years. And the hallmarks of this genre are very identifiable. They are nearly all low conflict narratives set in a kind of cozy or familiar space, like a bookstore, a coffee shop, a laundromat, convenience store, or there's a pottery workshop for in one of them, a department store, and there's a photography studio in another one. And you have these episodic encounters where the protagonists offer or are offered empathy and sympathy, cups of tea and coffee, and often some kind of subtle to less subtle magic to people and to the protagonist, who is usually grappling with some kind of very relatable struggle like loneliness or exhaustion from work or heartbreak. Usually, these books are infused with fantasy to a light degree or to a kind of stronger degree in the case of the Dallergut Dream Department Store and the Rainfall Market. And they emphasize self acceptance and human connection and incremental healing over dramatic confrontations or transformations, and praised by many readers as a kind of self-care literature and empathetic literature, just tailor-made for turbulent times and when we've had wars and political division and climate anxiety and economic anxiety and the pandemic and the post-pandemic and this kind of thing. These books provide a comfort blanket. They're a comforting escape. They're a warm hug in book form. But perhaps beneath the surface and beneath this warmth that they seem to offer lies a deeper and perhaps more unsettling reflection. So while these stories do in some ways validate real pain, they rarely challenge the structures that produce it. Instead, they redirect energy inward or toward personal rituals or towards quiet endurance. So, drawing on elite theory and declinist perspective of Neema Parvini, who I talked about in my previous video, and particularly his books, The Populist Illusion and The Prophets of Doom, we can see Korean healing fiction perhaps not as empowerment, but as a symptom of a structural resignation. And so Parvini channels classical elite theorists like Mosca, Pareto, Michels, and argues that societies are invariably governed by small organized elites, rendering genuine upward mobility or systemic reform or mass agency illusory for the most part. And so in this stratified reality of a soul of South Korea, ordinary people intuit. They inherently understand the futility of success or succeeding or meaningfully improving their circumstances through effort or collective action. And comfort becomes the rational response, not rebellion, but soothing acceptance. There's no escape from the sort of grueling system, so you might as well indulge in something comforting. And Parvini pushes us further through his discussion or engagement with declinist thinkers in The Prophets of Doom, which was his earlier book. And the Prophets of Doom include people like Oswald Spengler and Arnold Toynbee. And Spengler in particular, so Parvini talks about Spengler's Decline of the West and says that in this, Spengler portrays civilizations as organic entities cycling through seasons, from spring's vitalities, giving way to entropy and malaise and exhaustion in winter. And Toynbee, in his study of history, traces how societies in decline respond to challenges with stagnating civilizations. They respond. They don't respond with creative renewal. They stagnate. And he calls this a civilizational winter. And in this phase or period, the heroic animating myths of conquest or transformation that embody these sort of heroic ideals, they fade, they disappear. And what emerges instead, or what replaces them, are consolatory narratives. So, like we see in the healing fiction, the myths or stories, the narratives about quiet endurance and inward self care and repair, and as a sort of passive coming to terms with the status quo amid general or increasing decay, civilizational decay. And the K healing fiction embodies, we could argue, precisely this shift. So the protagonists don't overthrow oppressive systems or achieve grand victories. They, brew tea and coffee and fold laundry and, make pottery or curate dreams for other people, and they do this to mend, fractured hearts and stressed out nerves of various people in their orbit. And this, we could say, is a kind of cultural pacifier for the non-elite masses. This is a kind of process of turning resignation into a consumable aesthetic. In an era when illusions of progress are wearing thin. And so far from being subversive, these very gentle tales instead they confirm this intuition that I think lots of people have, that real change is blocked, and instead they offer this sort of simple warmth as a refuge in a declining world. And as in the sort of Spenglerian terms, he talks about the cycles of a civilization as civilizations enter their winter phase. People abandon epics of conquest for tales of quiet endurance. And as such, the Korean healing fiction is kind of perhaps maybe prophetic of where we stand. So let's see. So the healing fiction, it's a growing subgenre of contemporary literature, prioritizes emotional restoration and gentle optimism, emerged quite prominently in the early 2020s. And I think it was inspired by a similar trend that was sort of happening in Japan. And the stories are designed to soothe and heal through these understated and comforting narratives. The Korean works do infuse distinct local flavor. So the fantasy elements in the magical marketplaces and the dreamlike department store. But there is, though, a keen reflection of genuine social pressures, which are relevant to modern South Korea. This includes intense job market competition, chronic work-related stress, pervasive loneliness and isolation, and the emotional toll of rapid urbanization. And these books often unfold in these mundane yet enchanted settings where the central characters enable or facilitate some quiet transformation for other people. And this sort of mirrors or parallels readers' own attempts to find some balance in a difficult world. And I think I'm kind of waffling a little bit, right? What did I want to say? So the heart of the genre, we have these very episodic, low stake structures, and this we can see this in the Hyunam-dong. Welcome to the Hyunam-dong Bookshop, which was published in 2021, translated globally in 2023. And this depicts a small neighborhood bookstore as a sanctuary for emotionally weary characters and the part-time workers and the owner and the people connected to them. The protagonist is a corporate burnout, and she opens this shop encounters a cast of visitors, divorcees, overworked part-timers, stressed out parents, and various other people, and doesn't and offers them books and coffee and heartfelt conversations, which ultimately foster self-discovery and a sense of community. We see something similar in the Dallergut Dream Department Store, published in 2020. I think there's at least one sequel to this, again, very successful. And this is in a sort of a magical department store where dreams are commodified and sold. And this helps characters process grief and regret and unfulfilled dreams through buying sort of whimsical, dream-like memories. And then Marigold Mind Laundry, which was in 2023. This is about a magical laundromat that cleans clothes and magically washes away emotional trauma like heartbreak or anxiety or resentment. And through these episodic acts of kindness and magical enchantment, we see this sort of blend of everyday realism with the healing magic that is a key feature of the genre. And the cultural resonance of these novels has been significant, is still significant, particularly among millennials and Gen Z readers. And of course, this cohort, this demographic, they're navigating economic difficulties, precarious employment, and even perhaps heightened social isolation, which some would argue was sort of supercharged or exacerbated by COVID-19. In this, when would the cutoff be? In this sort of in the 2020s landscape, it's characterized by global uncertainties, by rising living costs, by increasing mental health problems, increasingly fragmented social bonds. And these stories, they offer a kind of, like I said, a warm hug, a balm for the soul. And they appeal to people who feel overwhelmed by these systemic challenges, but they crave some kind of narrative of hope, but that doesn't have sort of any confronting or challenging elements. And the sales data, if we want to look at the sales data, so I got most of this from the K-Book Trend website. Overseas sales of translated Korean literature. So this isn't just a trend in Korea. Also, these books are very popular with international readers. Korean literature has, the Korean literature in translation has surged in 2024. It doubled from the sales of the previous year. And these healing fiction titles like Hyunam-dong Bookshop and Marigold Mind Laundry are some of the books that have been a big part of that. There was a rise in translated fiction sales in 2025 compared to 2024. And again, some attribute this success to the healing fiction genre's popularity among younger demographics, these Gen Z millennial readers, and who are seeking this kind of escapist but therapeutic and sympathetic reads. And domestically, again, fiction sales, haven't changed too much in the past couple of years, but the healing novels absolutely are contributing to the overall, book market revenue value in Korea. So on the positive side, these books are so compelling for so many people because they do validate real, perhaps often unspoken pain, and they do promote self-acceptance, the pursuit of small joys, this kind of thing. And, unlike the more intense genres that dwell on trauma or demand a greater emotional investment or some sort of cathartic response or something. These books acknowledge the grind of daily life, of failed relationships, dead-end careers, quiet despair. And they do it without judgment, right? These are books that highlight how simple connections, mindful little rituals, and maybe just a touch of magic can restore inner peace, peace of mind, and they encourage readers to embrace these little imperfections and problems that people encounter over the course of their life, right? Find peace in routine. Celebrate the little growth, the incremental improvements that you make in your life, and this makes these books ideal for those who need some kind of emotional support. And, is this though truly healing, or is it a symptom of something else? Is it a symptom of a broken system? So let's see. So yeah, let's try and understand why the Korean healing fiction trend resonates so much in our current moment. And let's try and use the framework of elite theory. And we're going to do this to try and strip away some of these comforting illusions about power, about agency, and social change in general. So Neema Parvini is a scholar. He was a Shakespeare scholar originally, but in recent years he's turned to sort of writing about these sort of political ideologies. And in the the three key books here are The Populist Illusion, The Prophets of Doom, and Applied Elite Theory. And in these books, he attempts to synthesize classical elite theory with cyclical views of history to argue. And again, I'm not an expert on these things, so don't take my word for it. But in my understanding, he does this to argue that societies are structured by immutable realities of power. And these are this is a reality that renders populist dreams of mass empowerment delusional, impractical, not possible. And at the core, as Parvini outlines, at least again, as far as I understand it, lies this insight that all societies are inevitably divided into a small organized ruling class and a large disorganized majority. And he draws on, he outlines these foundational thinkers like Gaetano Mosca, Vilfredo Pareto, and Robert Michels and James Burnham, and emphasizes that power is always exercised from the top down. So he talks about Mosca's foundational ruling class concept, which asserts that organized minorities dominate disorganized majorities in every historical era and political system, no exceptions. Pareto talks about the circulation of elites, describing how one elite replaces another through cunning or force, the foxes and the lions, but never through genuine bottom-up revolution. Michel's it talks about the iron law of oligarchy, and that this extends to all organizations, even those that are ostensibly or technically democratic ones. And who says organization says oligarchy. And so even revolutionary rebellions or democratic movements or egalitarian movements inevitably sort of inevitably become or converge into new hierarchies ruled by a minority. And so Burnham, for example, in the managerial revolution, he updated this for the modern era. And so Burnham argued that power shifted from the preceding traditional capitalists to managerial elite, which controls through bureaucracy, through corporations, and through states. And the result of this is essentially that true democracy, the idea that the people in some way are sovereign, is and always has been a myth. Public opinion essentially has no impact on public policy, or a negligible impact on policy. Elites manufacture consent through the media, through institutions, and political formulas, right? Like a narrative that they sell to the masses that serve to legitimize their dominance, their rule. And populism as Parvini argues, is the most persistent delusion, the belief that mass mobilization can seize control or force systemic change or reform. History arguably shows otherwise. Elites just exploit or manufacture the movements entirely, or co-opt movements, and just use these things to circulate or keep power among themselves, while the masses remain just a sort of passive, in, passive in that structure, in that framework. And this has significant psychological implications for that mass of non-elites in this, who are trapped in that framework. So these are structural barriers, extremely competitive or rigged, even sort of rigged job markets, the elite capture of institutions, the precarious economic situation, create or foster an internalized sense of futility. So, real upward mobility or meaningful change feels impossible. But this doesn't lead to a sustained rebellion, but to resignation. The elites are too good at pacifying the masses, and this is because they're aware of the discontent of the masses, and they manage it through soft, or well, not just soft, but just through mechanisms like the welfare system, the therapeutic state, the therapeutic culture, media distractions, K-pop, reality TV, streaming, whatever, and various other things, and consumerism in general. And this channels energy away, or it doesn't channel energy outward towards challenging the system. And so these tools together serve to preserve the stability without conceding power, without letting power seep out into the world. And we can extend or connect the analysis to this idea of historical cycles, which Parvini outlines in The Prophets of Doom, where he talks about declinist thinkers like Oswald Spengler and Arnold Toynbee. And Spengler's Decline of the West talks about this idea of civilizations as organic entities with life cycles like plants or seasons. So you have a vital, vigorous spring of creativity, of cultural creativity and exuberance. This gives way to summer of maturity, an autumn of refinement, intellectualism, and then finally a winter of entropy, malaise, exhaustion, and ultimately materialistic decline. And in this is a Faustian winter phase. It's marked by money-driven flattening or bureaucratic dominance, spiritual exhaustion, the earlier heroic narratives of conquest and renewal have lost their vitality. Entropy has infected society, and the societies aren't seeking transformation anymore, but attempting preservation amid decay. As for Toynbee, Toynbee talks about this idea of challenges and response. Civilizations rise through creative elites, tackling existential threats, but in decline, they are incapable of innovation or responding, and this leads to disintegration. And in Prophets of Doom, highlights how these thinkers see late stage civilizations shifting from the dynamic myths of heroism and action to myths that emphasize endurance or introspection, and passive acceptance rather than confrontation or even rebirth, right? Or something like that. In the civilizational winter, it's entropy. Entropy reigns. The heroic epic has faded, and they've been replaced by narratives that at best soothe the weary without demanding investment or upheaval. And so I think this together, right, this framework, this bridge between the structural pessimism of elite theory and the decline of the prophets of doom. This together, these explain why in this era of stagnation and elite entrenchment in the in this sort of the permanent elite class, which remains entrenched and has been there for a long time. This is one of the reasons why people might gravitate toward gentle, inward focused stories rather than calls to arms, right? And so we can maybe see this isn't just we're not just seeing political illusions, but cultural illusions as well. When genuine agency seems futile, when decline feels inevitable, then consolation becomes a prevailing cultural mode. But how does this manifest in the cozy stories of Korean healing fiction? So let's see. So we can, I think, maybe it's a bit of a stretch. Am I only halfway? I think I need a better editor or something. And what is someone left a comment? What is this? Cameron Bradley, welcome was one of the only books I had to give up. It was borderline insulting. Oh, I'm sorry about that, Cameron. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't keen on it either. But I feel a little bad criticizing them because I know so many people who do enjoy them. But so I do feel a little bad criticizing them. But yeah, I've had to read several of these books now, and I'm not keen on them. But anyway, okay, let me try and continue. Is there anything I can skip? I think I need to start editing my my scripts here. See, I've reviewed these several of these books, so I kind of stuck them all together and then kind of tinkered around with them a bit. I think I should have spent a bit more time editing it. Anyway, let me just keep going. Okay. So I think what I'm trying to say, essentially, what I've spent all this last half hour trying to say is that these healing fiction books, they're not harmless, right? They're I mean, they are a harmless refuge, but they're not just that. They're a symptom of these deeper realities that we can see in this sort of declinist and elite view, right? So these gentle episodic tales, they mirror a kind of structural impotence that Parvini identifies. The protagonists, they don't challenge or dismantle the system. They can't fix the systems that are causing the people they meet to suffer. They can give some consolation to the individuals they come across, but they can't. They're not restructuring things in a way that stops these problems from happening. So in the Dallergut Dream department store, the store manager gives out these packaged magical dreams, and the dreams serve to help people alleviate whatever problem they're experiencing. But the underlying problem of this ultra competitive society, where it's difficult to get on the housing ladder or difficult to raise a family and all these kind of things, that is untouched, right? That's outside the scope, the ability of that book to challenge. And there's no revolution in the among the characters buying these dreams. There's no collective uprising against this kind of dream economy. Instead, it's just a little bit of empathy, a kind word. That's what you can offer. And this is what elite theory would think about as a kind of a futile agency, right? The non-elite masses are structurally excluded, and they just get these sort of personal these personal things to pacify them, rather than something that's genuinely empowering. If there was something genuinely empowering, you wouldn't be allowed to have it, right? And I think readers, if you understand or sense at some level that it's how difficult it is to succeed or improve your situation in a world that seems rigged and where the elites are untouchable, it's very easy, I think, to gravitate toward these very low stake fantasies, precisely because They, do acknowledge pain, but they don't demand that much from you. They validate your exhaustion or your loneliness or your, quiet despair, but they channel it into these very cozy little rituals, right? But this is a rational coping method, right, or strategy. If there is no possibility of systemic ascent, then consolation is that's an intelligent adaptation, right? You might as well take the consolation, take the comfort. Why rage against the machine when the machine has already won? Isn't it better to find some solace in these small achievable victories? I think we could perhaps argue, maybe it's a bit of a stretch, but the genre serves as a kind of pacification. So it redirects energy from potential outrage, from activism or unionizing, or even just gritty literary realism toward this sort of self care, little acts of kindness. And this, lines up with the other tools that elites use to manage discontent, whether it's media distractions or therapeutic culture or whatever, right? And again, it turns this sort of resignation into an aesthetic, something that is beautiful. They all have these very identifiable covers. It's marketable, it's shareable on reels and shorts and so on. And you turn this sort of very passive and pacifying thing into just this consumable, just a consumable product, right? You're consuming this sort of resignation. And then there was another example that I wanted to mention. I really have been talking for too long. So several years ago, I had to review a book for another radio show called Hector and the Search for Happiness. And this is, I think it was Swedish. Was it Swedish or Norwegian? Wait a minute, French. It was a French book, right? Sorry. So this was published in 2002, translated in 2010, and it's kind of a humorous self-help fable that surprisingly it became a global bestseller, and it was a big hit in Korea in 2013, and it sold over 2.5 million copies worldwide. And the writer is a guy called François Lelord, and he was a psychiatrist, a French psychiatrist who advised companies on stress and job satisfaction. And he observed that even his wealthy, privileged, and successful patients remained anxious and dissatisfied. And in the novel, the story follows Hector, who's a young psychiatrist. He's disillusioned because nothing, the prescriptions, antidepressants, and the advice that he gives his patients doesn't make them truly happy. So he embarks on a global journey, and he collects these episodic lessons on happiness from monks and old friends and a drug lord at one point, and various other people, a professor. And he learns all these lessons, like comparison can spoil, making comparisons can spoil your happiness, and it's harder to be happy in a country run by bad people. And it's a mistake to think that happiness is the goal. And then the book sort of concludes that that happiness is like a collection of these small joys and pleasures rather than grand achievement. And like the Korean healing books reminded me of this book. So like the healing protagonist characters, Hector offers these very gentle insights and little adjustments to attitude rather than a wider systemic critique. You can't help but think that these books get pushed exactly for that reason, right? They're not selling millions of copies to people to say the system, you should rip the system apart or something like that, right? It's like, oh no, if you meditate for 10 minutes a day, you'll be a little bit happier, right? And it's all this kind of nonsense. And again, like these healing books, Hector's quest is about self-acceptance and quiet contentment, not transforming the world. And Hector, it mirrors the healing genre, this illusion of agency. You get these little lessons that provide some comfort. You can make yourself a little bit happier through little mindset shifts and small realizations. But again, there's no interest in confronting any sort of elite dominated structure like wealth disparity or inequality or geopolitical issues or anything like that, right? Hector has this very mild quest-like adventure. So it's not location based like the Korean ones, but it's doing something very similar, right? But the Korean healing books have even completely abandoned any sort of hero's journey quest-like structure. So maybe that's kind of a decline as well. Anyway, maybe we could also say, if we're thinking about a civilizational winter, this phase of entropy and malaise and so on, that there's no point engaging in heroic action, right? It's obsolete, it's pointless. The reason that these type of epics aren't produced is that it just doesn't make sense in the context. And the healing fiction embodies that as well, right? There's no grand quest, there's no call to rebellion or anything like that, right? And okay, so I think we're almost at the end. So anyway, let me just mention a couple of things. So am I being too harsh on these books? Am I being too harsh? That these books are beloved. A lot of people love these books, and maybe I'm being too cynical, or maybe I'm being too dismissive. And the usual defense of these books is that they do genuinely empower marginalized voices, and particularly young women or introverts or people burned out by corporate or academic pressure. And maybe these people, they rarely see their quiet struggle reflected with tenderness in mainstream literature. And so this genre gives a space to this kind of healing and self-compassion, and these experiences that are often disproportionately borne by women or just by lower status groups in very competitive societies. And so maybe some people would say I'm being too judgmental or too critical. I'm dismissing the therapeutic value, or maybe I'm even pathologizing the readers who find real comfort or strength in them. I mean, who am I to judge? These people for reading these books, right? If it brings you comfort, who am I? Who the heck am I to criticize you for that? And I think that's probably true, that empathy that people get from these books isn't an illusion, right? They really do, for some readers, validate their experiences. There may be experiences that are trivialized elsewhere. Maybe I'm trivializing it. Grief. People have grief over small things in their lives, and the daily, the routine disappointments that you can experience in your daily life, or just the feeling of not being connected with people. And you don't need, you don't need like a heroic myth in these situations. You just want some comfort, some validation, right? And so maybe this is genuinely restorative for people, even if from this sort of structure that we're looking at things through, this individual empowerment doesn't equate to anti-elite agency. And in the elite theory terms, this is how the people are pacified, right? Discontent is acknowledged, but it's managed at the level of the individual. It's not redirected towards the system. And the genre essentially then is just reinforcing the stability of the elites instead of channeling this genuine and legitimate frustration towards them. It sort of turns that into these little acts of self-care, right? So you're acknowledging this genre, which is pushed by the publishing industry a lot. It does acknowledge real pain, but it's is not subversive, right? It's containment, right? It's sort of keeping you on the reservation, right? What else? Okay, so I think though, I think you wouldn't not all escapism is pathological, right? People have always, people love watching romantic comedies or reading nature poetry and things like that. So healing fiction is, maybe it's just this new iteration of that need that people have, right? I mean, everybody watches sitcoms, or you listen to the like the ASMR sound of the stream burbling, right? This kind of thing, right? No, I wouldn't say that these things indicate civilizational decline, right? So why am I coming after the K fiction book? Why the K healing books? But I think it's maybe there's just something about the prominence, the cultural dominance of these books. Maybe the historical timing of them as well, right? We've always had light entertainment, but that just the sheer popularity of these narratives, and the popularity, especially with among young adults, it coincides with youth unemployment anxiety, the housing, the difficulties in housing, in Korea with the declining birth rates and all of this kind of thing. And there's something about it that just seems more specific than this escapism that that has always been a part of culture. It's not that these cozy stories are inherently bad. It's just that it just seems to map so well onto these symptoms of structural futility, internalized resignation, this cultural shift to consolation amid decline instead of confrontation. And so I think it you could also say that these books are kind of crowding out other genres. And so I think it's just the degree to which they're popular and the degree to which they're pushed as part of the reason why I thought this analysis applied. Anyway, and as well, I suppose I should say that Parvini, despite being I think he was an English literature professor, but I don't think I think he said he doesn't read novels, and usually he doesn't. I mean, he uses this to actually talk about political theory in real elite circulation. He doesn't really analyze novels, let alone translated Korean healing fiction. So maybe this is a bit of a leap to apply these ideas to the K healing books, and that's probably a fair criticism. This was just an attempt to apply this theory, to these books. Maybe it's complete nonsense, actually. Anyway, what else am I going to say? So, it's not. Maybe it's not an isolated phenomenon. You have cozy everything these days, right? You even get cozy video games. You see all these trends on social media for different types of cozy aesthetics, right? I remember a few years ago there was a trend for adult coloring books, right? And these all seem kind of similar things, right? It's very low stakes, repetitive, and soothing. There's a sort of aesthetic element to it, like even like a domestic, like a sort of a like a cozy, comforting surrogate domesticity, aesthetic of domesticity to it, but it's not real domesticity. And there's like an aversion to conflict in these books. And I think this just seems like it's stasis, it's exhaustion. And I think I don't want to be super critical, right? I'm not like judging people for reading these books or anything like that. It's not a moral condemnation of people who find solace in these books. It's just I think the genuinely remarkable success of these books, we can see it in this larger pattern, perhaps, of structural and cyclical realism. We can sort of realistically, we can put it into that structure, right, and see why it's relevant to this period of decline. Anyway, okay, so let me just wrap up. So, anyway, these K healing books have become one of the most resonant literary trends in recent years, precisely because they appeal to so many readers. They offer gentle acknowledgement of pain. They promise repair. They give you these sort of small doses of happiness. But through this lens of elite theory and declinist realism, this comfort is a cultural symptom of a deeper condition, of a world defined by elite dominance, structural barriers to genuine agency, and the quiet entropy of civilizational winter. And so, we inhabit not the vigorous spring of the heroic myths or the mature summer, but the exhausted winter. And healing fiction fits this perfectly, right? And I think it's not accidental that it's popular. I think a lot of readers maybe subconsciously understand that they were reaching for these books because real success and systemic change or revolution or ascent is foreclosed for most people. And so this sort of warm hug of these books is the best that some people can get. So they're not subversive, they're pacifiers, they're myths for the children of winter, and not for spring, right? So anyway, I think I'm going to wrap up there because I've been, talking for far too long. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you enjoyed this analysis. Maybe it is. Maybe it's a lot of nonsense, but I hope it isn't. Anyway, thank you for watching.